A good test right now, go on the circle, go rising trot, he should maintain the same frame. Yeah? What I don't like to see is when we go posting trot and the horses automatically respond with diving on the forehand. Yeah? They should carry themselves. That's good. Even when the seat is not that supportive. Yeah? Very good. And show us the transition to the walk, but keep the trot a moment. If he starts resting on your hands in the transition, go immediately forward and bring that to his attention, that it's not okay to lean on your hands, all right? Good. So address those little things. And again, it was okay, but he stopped a little bit more than you wanted him to, yeah? And I like the idea of coming under, that's great, but you want to be in charge of that a little bit more, yeah? Try it once more. And I appreciate that he comes back like that. The talent for engaging the hind leg is definitely there, but don't let this transition be an evasion. He should not stop on you. Even the downward transition has a forward tendency. And go. That's very good. You want to be happy with it, yeah? Good. And back to the walk. Yeah. Good. And long rein. Yeah. But it's so important to me when I ride my horse, yeah, and I have some comments from the ground that said, looks great. It is not good enough if it doesn't feel right. Yeah? And a lot of instructors say this, you know what, it looks great, don't worry how it feels. That never works for me. Yeah? The horse really has to be, the feeling has to be there, that you can ride the horse. The horse has to be adjustable, rideable. Yeah?
Then the difference between training riding and showing riding. I mean, it's a difference. I always tell my students, you know, if you want to go show this year, you're going to have to sort of not keep thinking about moving up the levels because it's a different thing. I, as a judge, can only say, you know, that I have these standards that I have to attach to my scores, and if the neck's too low, even though the horse is really round, I still have to take a point off because that's what my criteria is, to be fair to everybody. There's different reasons sometimes the horse gets a little tighter, the horse gets a little behind the vertical. Again, there are different sins. If a young horse with a lot of power and a lot of trot occasionally runs into its neck and needs a little more support from the rider, that's not such a big sin. If the rider's pulling the neck backwards, or allowing the horse to lead because they have an insecure position or they have an incorrect position, then that's a bigger problem. That's a fault, and that will be judged more strictly. But you know, for the 10, for the 8, 9, 10 actually area, all of the different, the frame and where the pole is and how the mouth looks, those things have to be the same. So one other thing is when you're training, if something isn't right, fix it quickly. As Stefan keeps saying, in the show, unfortunately, if it says you're supposed to trot it in, then that's what you have to do, even though you know it's maybe not going to work. But in the show ring, if you're going to if you have two choices, sacrificing quality for accuracy, then give up the accuracy. Because again, you're testing reactions, and if the horse does a bad transition, they learn something from that. So don't be afraid to be a little bit less accurate for the sake of your training, because you're probably going to get the same score anyway. You know, we'll say good transition but late, or accurate transition. Actually, you might get a lower score. So I say good transition but late, that's a 7. Right, Kim? And if I see you go upside down and M for the transition, then you're going to get a 6. So again, think of those things that even though you're showing and you're in the show arena, you still actually are doing a little bit of training. Okay, so first level test 4, we're going to look at that. I can tell you as we go through the test, and you can tell by the coefficients on the test, we don't ever attach a coefficient the first time a new movement is introduced at a level, because we're not that mean. We're pretty mean, but not that mean. So the other thing to think about is, I know I judge a little more forgivingly in first level test 1 than I do in first level test 4. I feel by first level test 4, if you're coming out and I give you a 65% or above, then I should be telling you, you know what, you're ready to go on to second level. Okay, where at first test 1, it's sort of like, you're just trying to learn some of the movements, and so we don't expect them to be quite as confirmed. Now you'll notice that in the new test, we did say at first level, you can do your trot lengthenings, sitting or rising. What that means, hint, hint, if you can't sit the trot, post. Okay, because I have given, I don't know how many low scores this year, saying, you know, why don't you just post? Because you obviously can't sit it, and you're doing your horse no good. If you can't sit the trot, you're going to interrupt the rhythm, you're going to cause regularity issues. You know, there's all these problems. So we kind of gave up on trying to get you all to sit the lengthenings at first level. So we put this in here. So use this. Okay, it's better for a young horse sometimes anyway. Okay, help them out. So, oh, and one other thing, you do not change your posting diagonal when you're doing your lengthening. Okay, which sounds, a lot of you are going, who would do that? Oh, trust me. Trust me, they do that a lot sometimes.
I think Pony Club teaches that.
No.
Did it act? No?
On a lengthening? Oh, we need to get a hold of that real quick. Okay. First level test 4, purpose. To confirm that the horse, in addition to the requirements of training level, has developed thrust or pushing power. Now, the difference between pushing and carrying, this is a good place to say it. If I have a hind leg that's pushing me forward, it's still very possible it's going to go a little bit out behind the tail, okay? And the balance is still going to stay level. When we talk about engagement, we're talking about the hind leg staying, the inside hind staying on the ground a little longer, and then the articulation of the joints or coiling of the spring, that the horse can then spring up, uphill, forward. So engagement is really talking about the grounded hind leg. Activity is talking about the hind leg in the air. And I think there's still a lot of confusion between activity and engagement. Because just because your horse is doing this doesn't mean it's really engaged. Think of a hackney, you know, a hackney pony or a trotting horse. Okay, so the two pieces go a little bit together. But engagement is putting the hind legs on the ground longer so the shoulders can stay up in the air longer. You kind of think of Lavad. That's probably the highest kind of engagement you could get, where the shoulders, the forehand is so light it actually lifts up off the ground. Okay? So we're going to do our 10-meter circle. And again, if it is too large, this is where we always get into the discussion of size and does it matter? And the answer is yes, it does. So if you do a 12-meter circle, we're going to score you down. We don't care how beautiful the trot is. We don't care how beautiful and shiny your boots are. It's too big. And if it's too big, it's avoiding the difficulty. Okay? Better that you do a 9-meter circle, right? So that it might be even a little small. If you do something that's harder, we aren't nearly as grumpy. Okay? So what we want to see in first level 4 is, first of all, that you can come down center line and be straight until you hit L. So if you miss center line and have to come back onto center line, that is a bigger sin than turning a little early and sort of doing a little leg lift on the center line. Okay? One mistake I think we see a lot in 10-meter circles is everybody thinks they need to bend too much. And so then we have these little bendy things that are falling down on their shoulders and tripping on their lips. Okay? The other probably biggest mistake we see is the haunches falling out. You know, sort of the motorboat term. Okay? So think about size, you bend, think about the haunches. Then we want to see you finish the circle and still be on center line. You know, what can I say? And then, on top of that, you have to go to X. You cannot start leg yielding early, because again, you're cheating. Do we like cheaters, Kim and Barbara? No. Okay, so fine with me if only the horse's nose touches X. But something's got to touch X, okay? All right, one whisker at least. Then the leg yield. What is the essence of leg yield? Remember I told you that we go to the criteria of the movement very last after we talk about the quality of the gait and the training scale. Okay, the essence of leg yield is crossing. Not just the hind legs or the front legs, okay? The legs have to cross, like this. Okay? Does leg yield have bend, Aaron? Yes? Oh, it does. Have you read your rule book lately?
No bad. What does it have?
Flexion. See, Fort Trigger says, that's right, she's wrong. She's been doing it wrong this whole time. Bend, when we talk about bend, we talk about the whole body. Think of a Z, okay? All right? Okay, so flexion is just talking about the pole. Okay? So we've got to have flexion of the pole away from the way we're going. Now, on the lengthening, which is the next piece we're going to look at, we say the horse should cover more ground. So if you went across the diagonal, I think this is a helpful exercise sometimes, and just did your regular working trot and said it takes 15 strides to get from point A to point B. Now I'm going to lengthen. Oh, that was still 15 strides, right? Okay, so you want to say I could do it in 13 strides, all right? So covering more ground means the horse should have longer strides, not faster strides, because we see some, at first level, very interesting interpretations of lengthening. I think some of these children are going to get shaded baby syndrome trying to sit that trot. Okay, you can post or you can sit. Now, even at first level, it would be great if we could see two transitions. One at the beginning and one at the end. We hardly ever at first level see anybody at the end do anything. Okay? And remember our pendulum? Okay, at first level, it's only doing this. Okay? So we know you can't lengthen a lot, but we know you can come back some. Alrighty? Okay, so can we do this one at a time? And we'll talk a little bit. I'll tell you what I'm doing score-wise. So the turn and the approach is a modifier to the circle. So you see the haunches going right a little bit. Oh, he's not turning. Now, if she did that in the show, go back and start over. But if she did that in the show ring and went back and started over, I have to judge the first attempt, which is going to be a low score, and give her an error. So if you want do-overs, be ready to pay the price. You might discuss a little counterflexing to prepare for that stuff. Okay, so he tripped a little bit. But the trot's quite nice. It's fluid. She has enough bend, finishes on center line. So if you want to be mean and say it tripped, but otherwise a 7. The leg yield has crossing, but he's starting to lean, and the trot didn't stay quite regular. Okay, so 6. I would say modest, something happened, but not much. 6. Okay.